Okay, I'm gonna go over making another plush toy pattern, mostly just to document the Blender half so that you can kind of work through that. So first off, I start by getting a a model, and I want to do a lowland Vulpix in this case. So I'm referencing this one here from Smash Bros. And I'm looking at this plush toy for reference for some pose reference and seam placement. So I'll just quickly cover, download, and once you open that zip file, you'll want to just copy it and paste it into your own folder here for Blender. And we have been given an FBX file and a .dae, and so what we do is we will import an FBX. If you don't have that setting, you probably want to go to Edit Preferences Add-ons and look for FBX format, make sure that's checked. Then you can import your FBX. So I've already imported one here. Let's see if it's got materials. Yeah. The nice thing about FBX files is they usually have the textures and stuff already on them. So here's where we're at. So first things first, you're going to be in object mode by default. And I'm just going to click on the armature. These are the bones that control how it moves. I'm going to click on that armature, go into pose mode. And I'm going to click on this very bottom bone. This is like the mother bone, master bone. Armature says trans. It's like the transform bone, transwords. And I'm just going to rotate it. And what you can do is when you rotate, because this is your rotate tool over here, you can also press the R key and rotate. But what you can do is you can also just type in this little box, and I want it to go at 45 degrees. I don't know. There. So I've got it posed to do that, and I'm going to play around with posing it to sit, and then I'm going to sculpt off of it. So I'll just kind of play around. I'm just rotating the bones from the profile view, nice and easy. I think if I mirror it, usually the things are broken. Oh, nope. Okay. So if I want to move both legs at once, it won't mirror with my mirror thing here. So I'm going to make sure I can see through it with this X-ray mode on. And I'm just going to select both of these. Usually I just do this. Whoops. And that should select both of them. And then I can kind of rotate that. The bone orientation is a little weird because I don't know what they model this in. And if you don't like the way the bones look, if they're kind of in your way in this green bone thing, or it might be this one. Yeah, viewport display, I lied. Little running green man. You can change it to be a different shape. Sometimes wire is really helpful to be able to see everything. I'm just gonna grab this thing's tush with G, or use this move tool over here. And oh, that's not his tush. This is his tail. There it is. Nope, that's the spine. This one. Yeah, I'm just gonna scooch that down. You can also scale bones. So if I think his legs are too skinny or too small for what I want, I can scale it up however I want. Make these legs twist out. To do that symmetrically, well, actually, symmetry doesn't really matter because this is a symmetrical Pokemon. I can just mirror it, but just so that you can mirror it if you have an asymmetrical character that you want to work with, assuming you have an armature, you can press the R key, and when you press the R key, it will rotate based on your camera view. I want it to rotate straight out, so I will press R. And I think that's the Z-axis, up and down. Yeah. Let's see, I'll make that, say, -30. Okay, +30. Oh, wait, no, it's using its local, or whatever. Whatever. I'll just keep rotating. That's rotated. You can see in the top right there, it's about 24.5 degrees. I'm going to do the same thing on this other side. Selecting my bone here, pressing the R key to access the rotate tool. Press Z, that locks it to the Z axis, so it can only twist around on this one axis. And I'm just going to scooch that. Okay, its tail's an entirely separate mesh. Good. So here's, say, a rough pose that I want. But I want his feet to be a little bigger. I'm going to scale the little feet bones. Scale S key, or you can use this. I'm going to press the S key and type 1.25, make it 1.25 times bigger. And I'm going to do that for both of his little feet and his little bottom feet because they're really small. So there's like a rough sitting pose. I'm going to completely rework these legs here. Oh, I'm probably just going to straight up make new legs. So I'm just going to do this so it has some volume in there. And now I've got it posed. I'm going to set that pose so that it is permanent. Because if I go into edit mode, it's just going to go back to its T-pose, which was rotated. And we're going to do a lot of stuff in edit mode. So in this little wrench menu, these are called modifiers, and these are technically temporary changes you make to your object here. So armature is what is telling the polygons to follow this little interior stick man so that it poses. If I remove the armature, it's going to go back to its T-pose. So what I want to do is I want to apply that. And now this is its permanent pose. I'm going to delete the armature because I don't need it anymore. Oh yeah, that always freaks with the scale. It's okay. You can leave it if you don't want to. You can literally just sit it there and ignore it, but I'm going to delete it. Now just rotate him back in object mode. Now I've done a bunch of editing here in object mode here. And that can throw some stuff off. Basically what I'm saying is anytime you edit something in object mode and you're ready to move on and you want this object mode change to be permanent, you're going to need to go to Object, Apply, All Transforms. In this case, I've only done location, but I'm just going to do all. It's difficult to explain, and I don't want to take too long doing that, because that's not what you're here for. You're here to make some stuff. So here's my guy. He is now posed a little bit. I'm going to talk about using sculpt mode, because I think that might be more intuitive for a lot of people who don't use Blender. So I've got my little Vulpix selected, and I'm going to click over here and go into sculpt mode. Sculpt mode is like if I have, this is I think the inflate tool, blob. They changed them recently. If I have blob and I start dragging on this, it's going to make it blobbier. And I know G is grab, I just don't know where it is on, oh, there it is, on this new layout. It was over here earlier. I like to use the grab tool, and it's pretty self-explanatory, but before you start moving stuff around, if you want it to be symmetrical, you gotta use your symmetry guys. Now, your line of symmetry might be a different axis, depending on which way your model is facing. This one is facing onto the negative y-axis. So, let's see. Yeah, okay, X. But if I did it on Y, it would not be symmetrical. Z might do something. Nope. Like the Z axis, no, Y axis is top bottom, X is left right, and then Y is another left right, but up the opposite direction, I think. Just play around with it until it looks like it's editing properly on both sides how you want it. And I'm just gonna do some modifying of this little dude. And it's very low poly, which is good. Let me see how many polygons that has. You can see the statistics under this viewport overlays icon here. There it is, right here. Oh wow, this guy's only 3K polygons, it's perfect. If you want to use Plushify, you need it to be under 10,000. If you're not using Plushify, then it doesn't matter. You can go as bonkers as you want. It's just going to be a pain in the butt to cut seams if you have it super dense. But there are ways you can reduce the density and all that good stuff. So here's my slightly awkward little squatting dude. Gotta pose him around a little bit. Give him some thicker. Ooh. Ah, yes. So I'm using the shift key to smooth it. but not all of these vertices are joined. So it just says, oh, you want this face to be smooth? That kind of shrinks it or stretches it depending on what's happening. So this is just making a bunch of holes, and that I do not want. That's going to make it a pain in the butt. So I'm going back into object mode just so I can click on it and go into edit mode. So let's see, if I click, I think this one is a hole. If I just click that and move it, you can see this is technically two vertices. Vertices are these little dots. These are two vertices just stacked right on top of each other at the very exact same coordinates. Usually, this usually happens like if it's like based on the UV map when you import stuff. Like the paw is probably a different spot. Yeah, see, the side of the paw is there. The foreleg is around here, and all that good stuff. But we don't need to deal with that. So what we're gonna do is just gonna select all of the polygons by pressing the A key, or I can turn on my X-ray mode and use my little square boy, click, drag, and select all of it. And with that done, I'm gonna merge by distance, and that will make all of these little dots, if they're super close to each other, they will combine together. And that's what I want, because then once they're combined, they won't make a hole. And I believe that is under, it's under mesh, merge. And we're gonna do by distance. And that removed 1,206 vertices, and it looks like it joined the ones that were disconnected. But if you need to scooch it up a little smidge, you can do this. Just drag the merge distance up, but if you keep going, it will merge very far, and you don't want that. So usually, if it's just like, if they're right on top of each other, you can just leave it at the default. If you don't want to use mesh merge by distance, you can press the M key as the faster thing, and not mess with your number here. There. So now those are merged. Now I can go back into sculpt mode. So now I'm in sculpt mode again. I can smooth, and it won't make holes anymore. I'm pretty much going to remove the feet and make my own kind of lower body legs here. So what I'm going to do, I usually just delete the polygons, but I'm going to try and do as much of this in sculpt mode as I can, just because that tends to be a little more intuitive for people who aren't super familiar with Blender. So while I'm doing is I'm using the smooth tool, and to smooth, you can have any of these tools selected. I just know that you need to hold the shift key. I'm sure there's probably a manual icon for that if you, for some reason, don't want to or can't use a keyboard. You can make the brush go bigger and smaller with these bracket keys. I don't know if my key recorder can show that or not. Some of the keys it doesn't work for. So here's my little nub. Removed his little leggies. And I kind of want it to resemble this one, because this one seems to be really huggable, and it's just, apparently, that's a pain in the butt to find. So I'm just gonna kind of match it. Where's my inflate? It's pretty much just like a bean of a body. I do want it to have some little haunches, though. There, it's a little crunchy, but we can work with that. Just gonna scooch all of my stuff around until I like it. There it is, some nice little haunches for his little butt. This I'm gonna narrow up a little, just because, well, yeah, I'm gonna narrow that a little because stuffing will stretch. I'm designing this pattern based on what I know about working with Minky. I think his head's a little narrow. I want him to have a little bit more cheeks. Will that affect the pattern? Who knows? Some small details like that, it won't really do much for. It's just, the more you do it, the more used to it you get. That's just how it goes. So, I don't know if I want to sew these. That'd be awful complex. And I can easily just repattern these by straight up drawing the profile view. So I'm just going to smooth those out of existence as well. Because the whole idea of using this 3D model for a pattern is for me to use it as a starting point for refining my pattern. in real life. So basically I would make my little prototype pattern, revise that based on what I know about sewing, sew it up, and go from there. Okay, there's a nice little sit pose. I do want to move his legs forward though, because I want you to be able to hold him under his little elbows. So that is going to be better done for me in edit mode. My favorite way to select vertices in edit mode is with the select lasso tool over here. You can use whichever. Some people like this circle. It's kind of like a brush. You can just drag it, and then whatever you drag over it will include it in a selection. But I like to use this because this is how I used to model in software that was Japanese freeware back in the day. So I'm just going to select these little, you know what? Maybe I'll just use faces. Select it by face. Let's see if there's any asymmetry in this guy. Okay, the hair is. Everything else is not. I'm going to just edit one half of these legs. That way I don't have to do a bunch of work. And then I will just tell the mesh to look exactly the same on the other side. So I've got grab my leggy. And I use the G key. You can also just use this tool over here. And I'm going to drag it. Now, if you want it to drag and not have it look kind of funky, like this, you can turn on this proportional editing. It's kind of like a little magnet. And drag something. And after you drag it to where you want it, you can adjust how much proportionally around this moved piece will move with it. I could straight up practically make it move the entire mesh if I keep going high enough. But this is good for, you know, smoothing some things, but I don't always like to use it. Sometimes. I'll use it for like up to this point, and then I'll just go into sculpt mode and clean it up. There. I just want those legs a little more forward. Not that much. There, okay. So he's a little crunchy, but that's okay. We're gonna work with that. Okay, because he's crunchy and he became asymmetrical while I was editing all of that just now, so sometimes my little mirror thing might not work on some spots of the leg, like right here probably won't drag anything else on the right side. A little bit. But, you know, it's messed up over here, and I want it to look like this side that I've been editing. First, what you can do is you can select your mesh, and I think you can do mesh symmetrize. That might add some vertices. I don't usually use symmetrize if I have like an actual half of a thing, because sometimes it will add geometry. It's difficult to explain. But basically, what I'm going to do here is, thankfully, Pokemon models are very handy in that most of their little extra pieces are separate meshes, so I can select just this hair and move it around. Now, the way I just selected the entire thing there is I hover my mouse over it, and you can press the L key, and that will select linked. And that selects anything connected to this individual mesh object here that it's not connected to the head in any way. It's just kind of floats over it and intersects with it down here. If your version is different, keyboard settings change between versions, who knows? You can do select under this little thing. And I believe it's select linked. Yeah, there we go. Select linked. And there you go. So what I'm going to do is, I personally like to just move it to a new object layer. So to move it to a new object layer, this is completely optional. You can just straight up drag it up here out of the way for a while. But to move it to a new object layer so that you don't edit it while you're smooshing around the rest of this mesh is with the P key, I separate by selection. And I believe you can do that with, it's under Mesh, Separate, Selection. You could also do by loose parts, and that would probably put all these pieces into individual layers, assuming there's not a little vertice connected to this guy. Yeah. I'm gonna do it by loose parts. Oh, nope. Wait. Yeah, okay. Now it's in individual pieces, and I'm going to name them over here so that I know what is what. There. Alrighty. I'm gonna hide the tail and the hair while I'm working on this body. And also save obsessively, save all the time. In object mode, I keep tabbing in and out of object mode and edit mode. I'm going to try and explain which mode I'm in because that's one of the annoying things to learn if you're a newbie to Blender. So in edit mode, I'm just going to delete half of this little dude. So I like to use this rectangle for this. And I just drag over to almost the very middle, and then I'm going to delete those vertices. And from here, what I can do, and what I personally like to do, because this only works if you have a symmetrical model, unless you want to do all the symmetrical parts first, and then adjust it later, which is also very, very easy to do. But I'm going to add a mirror modifier, which, again, these are, like, quote, temporary. They're not actually editing your mesh object unless you apply it. So I'm going to go generate, because it will create or add, and let's see, where's my mirror? There we go. Depending on your model's orientation, it might be, it might do this or that. It might just be weird, weird, weird. So let's just make sure, just play around with this, and if it doesn't look right, you might be better off doing the symmetrize in edit mode instead. But I like to use this because then I can work on half of the mesh, and then it will automatically transfer to the other side. So I'm going to turn on clipping. All that does is it makes anything that clips into the other side here in the dead center, it's just going to stay connected so that I don't have any holes. Without clipping... Oh, I'm sorry, it's a merge. Merge is the one that... No? What is happening? Maybe it's my symmetry. Yeah, it's my symmetry. Okay. I had that on. Small stuff like that is what's going to get you in Blender. You're going to be like, what the fuck is happening? Why is this doing this thing? And it's going to be some tiny ass icon like that. So a lot of your troubleshooting steps are going to be like, did you apply all your transforms to your object? Did you apply your modifiers? Is the modifier in the wrong order? And weird shit like that. And that you just learn over time by asking people. You're being like, hey, my thing is fucked up, help. And usually people help you out. Anyway, clipping. Clipping is what will make it stay kind of smooshed, clip to itself. It won't really go over the center. But I like clipping and merge. That way there's no holes, and if I scooch it over, it still will technically have this center, and I can just drag it back, whatever. It's just, I like you doing this. It's just nice, easy little way to do it. Okay, back to sculpt mode here. Object, sculpt mode, thank you. I'm gonna smooth out this little spiky spike. I might keep the shoulders pretty narrow, actually, because this is gonna be made out of Minky, and I know Minky has almost four-way stretch. I think it depends on the Minky. Sometimes it has a little bit of vertical stretch. Usually it's got a lot of horizontal stretch. Not a lot, but a bit. So if I stuff this guy, and if I saw this pattern right now and stuff this guy, he's going to look like slightly inflated. He's going to look like he ate bees. That is the nature of sewing. And there's all kinds of stuff you can do to kind of contain it. And I'm not going to go into that right now. I'll go into it if it is relevant for this guy. So I'm just going to keep his little arms kind of narrow because everything, especially like straight lines and tubes like this, will come out larger when sewn with Minky, at least. And fleece, if you were to sew this with fleece, if this pattern is made for Minky, you might have some issues because fleece has a lot more stretch than Minky, and in both directions. What I need to do is I'm going to fill in his no thoughts head, empty head. What I can do to do that is in edit mode. I can either extrude little pieces from it. I could maybe get a sphere and combine it. But I think the easiest way to do this would be just making the inside yourself. So one of the benefits of having a mirror modifier is that with this little icon over here, this one that looks like a monitor, I can tell it to not display in real time. That way I can get a better view of the side here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select some of these vertices, and I'm going to press the E key. That is E for extrude. I'm sure it's edge extrude. Edges, yeah, you can do that if you don't want to use the keyboard shortcuts. And I'm just gonna extrude a couple, maybe 3 or 4. Yeah, we'll do 3 like that. And when you're extruding stuff, it is always by default, it will move relative to your camera. So if I'm, tilted this way and I want it to go forward and I do that, it's actually going to go forward and a little bit to the left or right. So if I just like to, you can either lock your axis or you can just do what I do, and I just switch my camera perfectly on the left, and now when I move perfectly on the left, this thing will literally only go front and back. So I've got my 3 little faces here, and I need to add one to connect. You can just select all the little bits and press the F key. I'm sure you can go select all the bits and go... Oh, that worked out. Let's see, it says how many vertices. Let's got 4. And I've got 1, 2, 3. Doesn't matter. I'm just gonna keep adding some polygons to fill these now. Just gonna select all of the little dots and press F over and over and fill this little dude in. There. Now he's got the top of his head. And now I can go back to what I was doing. Let's see, double check everything. Alright, I think honestly that's pretty good. This is a little chaotic in here. We can ignore it. It's okay. It's under... Oh, yeah, he's only almost 2,000 polygons. He's great. Okie dokie. Let's see. Is this an individual mesh object? No. I'm not going to sew, like... This is pointless to have right here. It's very small, the way it sticks out. So it's just easier if I smooth it away. And I will give it either an embroidered nose or a little plastic nose. And if I want to do an embroidered nose, I need to take that into consideration for how I make this pattern. Because if I want it embroidered, I need enough room for my embroidery hoop to work with and to sew after it's embroidered. So in this case, I would make sure that my head spot here goes down under that snoot. That way, that's where you sew, so you don't have to sew through embroidery, because good luck with that. You'll break your needle. I mean, I'm talking machine embroidery. This is, for the most part, that's the body. The body is done, pretty much, right now. For the reshaping, anyway. Let's see, the hair. I'm not... Honestly, the best way to... I think the best way to go about this swirl is just to, like, embroider it on. How does this thing work? No, that's sewn. I'm not quite sure how to do that. Let me look at some image. Give me some inspo internet. Oh yeah, see that one, it doesn't have it. Oh gosh, it's so hard to tell. Yeah, that one has it. It's so cute. Oh my god, these are so cute. Okay, yeah, that one has it. I'm not sure how that's made. That is beyond my baby skills. Dang. Wow. That's insane. Oh, I get it, I think. It's like making a weird drill. That is too powerful for me. I'm gonna keep it simple. Well, if I 3D model it, like, straight up with that whole swirl, I could probably UV map it like this. Oh gosh, that's too hardcore for me right now. I'm gonna keep it simple like this guy. Not that simple, but I mean, put a little embroidery on it, like this guy has. Oh, that's so cute. I'm just going to smooth that shit. Whoops. I'm in sculpt mode, but I don't have the right thing selected. I'm still on the body. So whenever you're going into object or edit mode, you have to make sure that you have whatever you want to edit selected for the mode that you are editing it in. Back to sculpt mode here. I'm just gonna... Jesus. I'll have to figure this out as I go along. Alright, that's good enough for now. Tail, let's see. That's... I mean, I don't really think it needs much editing. Maybe just this. Just smooth that little smidge. And let me look at this end here. Alright, I'm going to edit this in edit mode. This is like super... I don't really need it to be that crazy. If you double select some edges, sometimes, depending on the topology, it will highlight the entire edge, which is very handy, because that's what I want. Otherwise, you can select it manually, or you can just delete it, do whatever you want. In this case, I've selected this entire edge, and I'm going to use my scale tool to make all of them flat. So, with the S key, and I'm going to press Y, 0. Or you could use your scaly boy here and just drag this little green one, which is the y-axis, and like this, but it kind of snaps around. I don't like doing that. Now I've got a little tube. That's good enough. Well, actually, I need to take into consideration how it's going to attach to this body. Okay. So I'm probably just going to put a little seam right here in the butt. Just going to extrude that a little more into the body. I'll just make it really, really small. There. And this will go there, I guess. And what I would probably do, honestly, is I would, like, when it's sewn, maybe, if I want the tails to be really upright, I would just, you know, push it like this, and then use a little bit of sewing to tack it down on the butt here, and that might help hold it up if I want it to be, like, okay, this is nice and simple. There's not a lot of editing to be done for this little dude. Now onto the patterning part, which is like the big part.